and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Branco Broadcast. My name is Bob Branco. Tonight, we're very pleased to have back with us our friend Don Wardlow, the blind baseball announcer. Welcome back, Don.
Hey, Bob. Good to be with you, and I'm glad to be on here with our friends.
Well, you can update us as to what's going on, and then we can ask you questions.
Okay, well, let's see. When I was on here first in, you said November, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was on here first, I talked about a baseball column that I had begun writing in August, and that goes back to the fact that I was injured in January of last year. I'd been working with Blue Cross in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, so I had the, everyday working man thing going. So when I got hurt, I couldn't work and ultimately was terminated off that job. Ultimately, my wife divorced me, and I no longer live in South Carolina. I live in New Jersey, and my brother had the idea, why shouldn't I start a column about baseball on the internet? And I said to him, Bob, the internet's already full of internet columns about baseball. There's a million of them. And he said, well, you be 1,000,001. So I got to doing that. I started at the end of August. I kept it going daily through the end of the World Series. And when the World Series ended, I did two things. I opened up a Facebook group, and it had the same name as the column, which is See It. I figured with me being the only blind baseball announcer, that Baseball as I See It would be a good name for the column. And the regular column itself, which is going daily when the season begins, you can still see the old editions at baseballasaseeit.com, but you just put a dash in between every word, baseball-as-i-c-it.com. And now the Facebook group, you don't have to do that. The group is just called Baseball As I See It. So off season, I would write short pieces for that Facebook group, and sometimes I would write a longer piece for the actual column, the baseballasaseeit.com column. I wrote pieces for them when Yogi Berra died, for one thing. My brother woke me up that morning at 5:30 to tell me we'd lost Yogi Berra, and that's a huge loss even for the casual baseball fan because of Yogiisms like, it ain't over till it's over, or it ain't over till the fat lady sings. So I had to do a special edition for that. I have done specials for major signings that have happened, free agent signings, and different things. Whenever I felt there was enough material to warrant a column, I would do one. They go from 500 words to 1,300 words, usually. Then the shorter pieces are, as I say, shorter than that, and they're just for the Facebook group. They're mostly daily birthdays for people who are in baseball. I've got a website that shows me those day by day, and small items that don't warrant a full column, but the group itself seems to be quite popular. It's a public group. It's not secret or closed, so anybody who wishes to can join it. Although I've had to run a couple of people off for trying to sell football products on a baseball website. I don't allow that. I'd rather nobody tried to sell anything, but I absolutely won't tolerate somebody selling football sweatshirts and jerseys and such on a baseball website. So I've kept the column going. I've opened up the Facebook group, and that takes most of every morning. You wouldn't think, especially the short pieces, you wouldn't think they'd take all that long. But I find myself working upwards of 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes less, but if it's a full column, it can get to 3 or 4 hours to get either the Facebook piece or the column written. And meantime, when we had the idea about the column, I had the idea, and I said to my brother, what about a book concerning my life as the first blind baseball announcer? What about a book called Baseball as I Saw It? To go with the theme of the present column, Baseball as I See It. In the hope that people who read that column or are in that Facebook group might want to buy that book, Baseball as I Saw It, when it comes out, in whether either ebook form or in hardcover, whichever we end up doing. And that book has come along. It might have come along quicker if I didn't open up the Facebook group, but I thought the group would be a nice thing to have to keep the subject alive, keep the subject of baseball alive until opening day, when the column does go regular and become daily once again. And one of the great challenges I've found has been I recently started going to a church here locally, so writing a column on Sundays is challenging because once I do get home from church, there might be something I want to listen to on the computer, and I have to choose whether to write a Sunday column or listen to that broadcast, usually of a basketball game or a baseball game.
All right. Anything else, Don?
Well, the subject of the book is both my early life, which Joni here knows a good deal about, only there's a lot more in the book that Joni would never have imagined. And then it goes on to the part I haven't written yet, which is actually my broadcast career. I have written the part right up to where we have gotten our job offers, which we received in 1990, and my partner Jim Lucas and myself broadcast baseball starting in 1991 and ending in 2002. And the highlight of our career was broadcasting a few half innings of a major league game in 1994 between the Marlins and the Cubs. And that's actually what opens the book. And then from there, from that opening, we go to the story of my life growing up in New Jersey and my school days, my college adventures, and some adventures I had, I can tell you. And then into what happened in the years between college and turning pro. And we're getting to, the professional adventures that I had with my partner and my various seeing eye dogs, of which I had 5 in my lifetime. Only, I'm thinking 3 of them were involved, 4 of them were involved with baseball. Duffer was with me in college, and my partner Jim and I did a lot of college games. I got Gizmo in '89, and he went to games with me both before I turned pro and after I became a pro. Giz worked through the 1997 baseball season. And then I got Noble, who only lasted 3 years because Noble had a bad habit of crashing into walls. And that wasn't necessarily good for my health, when he would crash me head on into a wall. So actually he was 4 seasons with us, 98, 99, 2000, and 2001. I gave Noble quite a bit of time to straighten up and fly right, which he never did. And as he also kept escaping, I'd let him out. Actually, I'd try to just open the door, maybe to let somebody in or something, and then he would run out, and that would be the problem. Because for me to find him would be the next thing to impossible. And I'd have to get my broadcast partner. I remember well waking him up out of bed one morning at about 7:30 in the morning. Why I would have opened up the door to our hotel room, but I did. And Noble ran out, And I woke up my partner, and he was not fully conscious. You know how you are when you're just barely out of bed. And I told him, Noble ran off. And he says, well, what do you mean Noble ran off? And I said, well, what do you think I mean? I opened up the door and Noble ran off and I can't find him. So it took him a little while to process that, but he went and found Noble, and that was the last escape. That was it, though. I decided then that was the end of Noble's career at the end of that season. And then my final year in baseball, I had Ezra. So 4 of my 5 dogs were involved in my baseball life, and all of their adventures will be chronicled in the book. One I look forward to writing is Ezra had a very interesting habit. We would finish a game, and we'd get on the bus, and we'd go from, say, Charleston, South Carolina to Augusta, Georgia. And we'd get to Augusta maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would take Ezra off the bus. We'd find some grass, and I'd try to walk him, and I would wait and wait and wait. I'd give him upwards of 20 minutes, and Ezra would do nothing. And then I would get into the motel room with or without my wife. By then, my wife wasn't traveling very much with us, but sometimes she did. But I'd get into the motel room with or without her. And invariably, the dog would wait till I was completely and totally naked. And then I'd hear, and I'd have to put all my clothes back on again, get him outside, and that's when he'd have to walk. But he would never do it when I was right off the bus. He'd wait till I had all my clothes off and was ready to put on my pajamas and jump into bed, and then he'd start to whimper. But that'll be one of the many dog stories that'll be in the book. Duffer had a way about him. Duffer was my first one, and he was a golden retriever, as Ezra was. And Duffer could tell if I were honestly sick from a sickness or if I were hungover. And in college, being hungover was something that happened sometimes. So if I was hungover, Duffer would not want anything to do with me. If I wanted to pet him, and sometimes you feel pretty bad about yourself when you're hungover, and you would want to pet the dog, and Duffer wouldn't have anything to do with me, where if I was sick from the flu or food poisoning or whatever, then Duffer would let me pet him all I want, but not if I was hungover. But he was the only dog who seemed to have that ability.
All right, well, I guess you can open the floor for questions now because it sounds like you're finished.
Ed Feedish from New Jersey.
Okay, Ed Feedish from New Jersey. You have the first question.
Well, we had beautiful weather here today. It was about 50 degrees, and it's supposed to be up to 72 by Wednesday or so. So that's going to be good after the winter we had. We had a lot of snow here in February, as you've probably heard. Anyway, my question is, I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. In your career, did you ever make any recordings of the things that you did so that you could have the archives or show them to people, any of the games that you helped broadcast?
Yes, I did, and I'll tell you the good news and the bad news about that. The bad news, I thought, was a good thing. I thought I did have good intentions. I had to move at the end of my baseball career, I had to move into a much smaller apartment, and room for all the tapes of all the games that I had done over the years, because I had been taping them.
Open reel tapes?
No, cassette tapes.
Okay.
Mercifully, I got away from reel-to-reel earlier than that, but all I had done, everything I'd done starting with college was on cassette. And what I did, because we had to move and we were limited on space, I donated a great deal of that stuff to the Seeing Eye. And this is because I had gotten Seeing Eye dogs, and I wanted the students to have those tapes down in the basement at their disposal, and they could take any of them home with them. That was my master plan, that if they enjoyed listening to one or two or six, they could take them home and have a souvenir of what a Seeing Eye graduate, had done with himself and done with his life. Well, it was to my great sorrow that I discovered that after I made that donation, Seeing Eye lost all those games that I donated to them over the years. They had undergone some kind of renovation, and all those boxes of cassette tapes had got lost.
How awful, Don.
So that's the bad news. Now, the good news is when I was making that donation back in 2003, I decided, well, I can't donate everything. I can't give Seeing Eye all my work. I have to ferret out the best of the best. The walk-off win games, the extra inning games, the few playoff games that we did. We were in the playoff twice. All my early stuff. I didn't give Seeing Eye anything from my college years or my in-between years before I turned pro. So all of that is saved. And I saved, as I say, the best of the best. And so...
Smart move.
I haven't counted, but I may have between 100 and 200 out of the some 1,500 games that we did. I may own 100 to 200 of those. Some are still on cassette, and they're in the basement right underneath my feet.
And that's so good.
Here's what's been happening and what's going to continue to happen. Since this project began in 2013, I began to record games from tape onto MP3. And I started with my collection of games from the great broadcasters like Mel Allen, Ernie Harwell, Kurt Gowdy, those guys. I started with those, and having finished recording my collection of those onto a computer, I've recently started with the games that my partner and I did, which have survived.
Still working in Los Angeles. Did you know that?
What's that? What did you say? I missed that.
Friends in Arizona, they have Major League Baseball on the internet, and that's how I know that. I mean, he was working. Let me put it that way. I don't know what he's going to do this season, how long he'll work. He's really getting up there age-wise.
Vin Scully?
I got a tape of his that my computer techie gave me, I guess, of a broadcast from the internet, and
okay.
It's very good. And I think he lived in Jersey for a while, I'm told. I don't know.
Yes, Scully began with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1950. Now, the earliest Scully recordings known to exist are from 1957. I have never heard anything of his earlier than that, but those are from the last year of the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I actually have some of those as a part of my collection, and I've put them onto MP3 so that the cassettes could be thrown away. What's that?
Do you remember Red Barber when they had the telegraph when the games were played away? You would hear this click, 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 and it was
right.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I've heard about it now. I was born in 1963, and they had stopped doing that by then. But I will tell you a little story about what they called recreations. That's what they did by telegraph. That was a recreation. And in 1996, my broadcast partner and I, one night after a game, we went to a local place in Bowie, Maryland, and we had a few more than we should have. And he said to me, let's do a recreation. And to prove that I definitely had too many, I said, yeah, let's do one. Because what I didn't know was exactly how much work was going to be involved in a recreation. But the beautiful thing was this was 1996, and it was the 75th year that baseball had been on the radio. The first game was in 1921.
Wow.
So we figured on August 5th, which was the date of that first game, we would do a recreation in honor of the recreations for years gone by. And I would be in the studio of our radio station in Connecticut, and my broadcast partner Jim would be at the ballpark. And what we did for that occasion, we found one of the last living baseball broadcasters who had done recreations, and that was Harry Callis, the broadcaster for the Philadelphia Phillies, who lamentably we lost in 2009. But in 96 he was very much in good health, and in his great kindness he consented to give me an interview. And we told him what we were doing. The theme was going to be the recreations, and I asked him about his recreation days. He had been with the Islanders in the Pacific Coast League, and Hawaii wasn't about to send Harry across the Pacific to the mainland to broadcast games from Dallas or Seattle or Los Angeles or places like that where there were still minor league teams at that time. So while he was with Hawaii between 1964 and 1970, only 63 and 64, sorry. He went to Houston in 65. But during his Hawaii years, he did recreations, and Harry regaled us with stories of his recreations, and of the best stories, of course, of that time are when the Western Union wire went out and he couldn't get the information that he needed, that what was going on in the game, and he had to make it up until something got back together.
Oh,
but Harry was a great storyteller, and I've never forgotten my wife at that time. The day he died, she was upstairs on the computer, and she hollered down in the best Paul Revere tradition, Harry Callis collapsed in his broadcast booth, and I came tearing up the stairs, just hoping to God that it was a mistake of some kind. But yes, he had not only collapsed, but he had actually died, and he was 73 years old when we lost Harry in April of 2009, and a lot of people, broadcasters and commoners alike, thought we lost a friend.
Thank you. That really is fascinating, and at least he died happy, I guess, in the sense that he was doing what people expect, what he loved to do, and it was better than having to be in agony for any period of time or anything like that.
Right, he was studying up and preparing for a game, and then he had a heart attack, and he was gone just in a blink.
Bob, I have a question.
All right, go ahead, Jay.
I just want to say I need to leave now, so Don, I'll talk to you soon.
It's always good,
all right,
Joni.
Go right ahead with your question.
Joan.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks. You mentioned in your early presentation that as soon as you lost your job, your wife divorced you. Did I hear correctly?
Yeah, well, before that, she divorced me when after my operation. I had an operation, and she and her parents got a good look at me, all busted up in the hotel, and in the hospital, that is, all busted up and crippled and unable to stand. And then she was out of there, and not too long after that, she said, I want a divorce.
What happened to you? Did you get an accident?
I wish. And nothing that spectacular. I had hurt the right side of my back in August of 2014, and major mistake. I went and saw a chiropractor, and he gave me some exercises to do for the right side of my back. But in January, I was doing them, and I hurt the left side of my back, and it turned out I broke 2 bones in there. Ooh. Oh. And that was operated on March 4th. And my family came to see me. They came down from New Jersey around St. Patty's Day, and they decided that to bring me up here to New Jersey, where I am now, because of the hope of better medical care than I was getting in the South. And then after the divorce, it became pretty clear I wasn't going to return to the South again.
And how old were you then?
Same as I am now, 52. This all happened in the past year.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about sometime. So as a result of your back operation, the woman decided to get rid of you?
Yes, exactly.
Was she blind or sighted?
She could see.
Okay. And
that's always sad when somebody like her does that for that reason. I mean,
yeah.
we need to be reminded of the saying, till death do us part, for better, for worse.
Absolutely.
We need to be reminded of that sometimes, I guess.
A lot
and
of people...
how is your ability now? Are you functioning okay?
Yes, I've had a great deal of physical therapy since then. I'm at that time in March of last year when this all happened, I couldn't even stand up. And now I've gone from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane, and I can use the cane around the house. I still use a walker when I travel someplace that I have not been, but I'm using the cane around the house and doing much better than I have done.
So do you think this is some kind of a malpractice of chiropractor's case? Because obviously he told you to do something which you done, and as a result you hurt yourself.
I don't see it entirely as being his fault. He did the best he could, and I at the time I was taking a great deal of prednisone for my lungs, and that weakened my bones, which is what led to the injury that needed an operation.
I see.
And do you still have the dog?
No, I had given up Tori, the last dog I had, in 2013, because I had a lot of other problems related to my lungs and things like that, and Tori needed more exercise than I was physically able to give her at that time.
Right. One last question, that when you were broadcasting the play-by-play baseball, and obviously you are totally blind, will you rely upon whatever your partner was reporting from the field, or how were you reporting?
My partner did the play-by-play, but I did the color commentary for all those games over all those years. We were together in the booth, and we were a team like Abbott and Costello. He would say his bit, and then I would say mine, and then when the pitch would come, he would say what was happening, and then I'd say what I had to say, and we worked in tandem together for years in college and then 12 years as a professional team.
So which one were you, Abbott, and which one Costello? That's cute.
Oh, I was as much the Costello as anybody. I did a lot of funny things. I certainly tried to. And the audience seemed to appreciate them. And I still put some humor into my column, even though I'm baseball as I see it, for a title of column written by a blind man, and that shows a certain amount of humor.
Yeah, so definitely. You need more humor because you do come across a little bit, on a depressed side. I'm sure you've been through a lot, but I'm sure humor will heal you faster than.
I don't do that on purpose. I do listen to a lot of funny books at night to try to pick myself up. Listen to Dave Barry, Gene Shepard. When he lived, he was the funniest I've been alive. Gene Shepard, who was the voice behind it.
Storyteller, yeah.
Right.
He wrote 4 exceptional books, all of which I've got, and all of which,
hey, knock it off.
And all of which have been a major source of inspiration for me when things were at their worst.
I just want to remind participants that if there's any background noise in their home, they can mute by hitting 4* until they're ready to ask a question. All right, go ahead, Don.
So, one source of humor in the column is I try to take a zinger at the Boston Red Sox whenever I can because I'm a professional Yankees fan and been a Yankees fan since the mid-'70s. My grandfather was a tremendous Yankees fan, and when he discovered that I was listening to baseball, in the early years I was listening to the Mets, and he wanted to get across the point that the Mets were a bunch of beginners and the Yankees had been around since forever. Well, I just kind of thought he was teasing, but when I went to my first Mets game in 1972, I found out that day they were celebrating the fact that it was only 10 years since they had begun in 1962. So Grandpa knew what he meant when he said they were beginners compared to the Yankees who had been around since 1903. And now, that same day, my dad arranged for me to meet all three of the Mets broadcasters. I mean, I was 9 years old, totally blind, and he knew, and I didn't know it myself, but Dad knew that the broadcasters were really where it was at for me, even more than the players. And he knew that I would get a tremendous kick out of meeting the three Mets broadcasters, Lindsey Nelson, Bob Murphy, and Ralph Kiner. And did I ever get a tremendous kick out of it? He was the biggest dad for miles around that day.
Marcy, do you have any questions?
Yeah, when you were broadcasting, when you and your partner, now you sat in the booth with the others, or where did you?
Well, in every ballpark, it's a little bit different. Especially in the minors. In the majors, every booth is isolated, and the announcers aren't all grouped together. But in the minors, it can be different depending from park to park. Sometimes we'd have our own little booth, and we'd be closed in it. Sometimes there'd be a row of people sitting all next to one another, announcers and pencil press, and everybody. You'd have
kind of like at Fenway.
Yeah, and just whatever the setup was, Jim and I would adapt to it. If we had our own booth, we would close the door and lock it like you're supposed to so that nobody can get in, and then we could do our broadcast. But if we were on an open row, like Augusta had that, and Wilmington, North Carolina had that, or Asheville, North Carolina, although they had that also, we would adjust ourselves to it. We would take up the minimum of space that we could and try not to interfere with people who belonged in that booth, who belonged to the other team. You know, we tried to be, unlike some of the television people who, we would work with TV people every now and then, and some of them could be extremely unfriendly.
Obnoxious.
They could come in and act like they owned the place. Jim especially really tried not to do that, and he tried to get that across to me that I shouldn't act like we owned the place when we were in somebody else's city.
Like Don. Don Asilla was like that.
I know him very well. I know him from his minor league days in Binghamton, New York, and now he's going to be with the San Diego Padres.
Right.
We miss him here in Boston.
Yeah. But he used to go into places. He used to go into places like the Halfway Cafe and in Dedham, and he figured since he was Don Orsillo, he didn't have to pay. He didn't have to pay for his meals.
And he was probably right.
And so what happened was they banned him. They wouldn't serve him anymore.
I love it.
He's
hysterical.
He kept on doing that in Dedham, so they banned him. So he started to go to the one in Canton, and they actually did the same thing.
I love it. That is really funny.
And
that is beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean he stood at Jerry Remy's too.
What about Remy?
Jerry Remy, he would go into that also, but Jerry would say, hey, look, I can't pay for all your meals.
I love it.
So he would limit it to one meal a month.
Mm-hmm.
But when he would come down and schmooze with people and say, well, I'll stay with you if you buy me a round of such and such.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
He would come in. He would come into the games nice and thin. By the time baseball season was a fat pig.
Oh. Sounds like you weren't exactly a fan. Did you hear anything about how he left the Red Sox and why he is going to Boston? Is there anything?
A combination of things. The biggest one was that he had a fight with management because he wanted more money.
Okay.
And he and Don aren't really best of friends.
That being John who?
Don and Jerry are not really best of friends.
He and Jerry Remy. Oh my goodness.
Jerry is still with the team. Don left.
Yeah, Don left. Jerry's still there, and they still, he's still wondering, about partnership and if he'll be there too long afterwards.
I wonder who replaced Don on these are all TV games. I guess the radio.
Dave O'Brien.
Yeah,
and radio
very nice person.
Castiglione.
Yeah.
Castiglione is now with Tim Neverett. Pittsburgh Pirate announcer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh has Joe Block, and I trained Joe Block in Charleston, South Carolina.
You did.
I'll tell you a story about Joe Block. I saw potential in Joe Block from the very beginning. And I said to my partner Jim, I said, this guy's got it. This guy has a terrific voice. I'm gonna show him the ropes if you'll let me. And Jim said, you do what you want. He's going to work with you as much as anything else. So I said to Joe, I think you just might have an ounce of talent here. Just maybe. I'm not sure. And I said, just in case you do, I'm going to be the biggest asshole you've ever had to work with in your life. I'm going to treat you like the biggest, I'm going to be the biggest ego person that you've ever dealt with, because you're from Michigan where you don't get a whole lot of, major ego people. I'm going to make you do the lowest job, and I'm going to make you work hard, and I'm going to lean on you about the calls, because if you can handle me, being a jerk on purpose, you can handle any of the egos you'll deal with down the road when you get as high as you get, whether it be the major leagues or whether it isn't the major leagues. And like two examples come to mind. His first game, and he remembers this too. Joe and I still joke about this. We had a base hit and a run scored, but I didn't know where the other two runners were, whether they were at first and second or whether they were at first and third. And after the run scored, you're supposed to say whether the runner's at second or the runner's at third. So I let him. I gave him a chance. I gave him every chance to say what he should have. And then I said, where are the runners? Just like that. I wasn't even, I just snapped, where are the runners? And then he said, first and second, or first and third, whichever it was. But Joe remembers that. That's one of two incidents he remembers. And the second one, this was great. We were lucky enough to hold the South Atlantic League All-Star Game in Charleston, South Carolina that year, 2000, the year Joe was with us. So Joe had to do some team business on Monday night before the All-Star Game. The All-Star Game was on Tuesday. So I called Joe when he was done with his business, and I called him at just before 2 o'clock in the morning. He'd finally gotten done with whatever he was doing. And I said, Joe, you got a tape for me of some stats that I need for the All-Star Game, which he did. It's not like the tape didn't exist. So I said, you got a tape for me. I said, bring it to me now. Well, this is 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, Joe knew, and I knew that he knew that I wasn't going to listen to the tape until the next afternoon. But just to be an ego, I said, bring me the tape right now at 2 o'clock in the morning. So Joe did that, and he brought me the tape. He handed it to me. We were out in the yard in front of my building. And he says, this looks like a drug buy, me handing you a package at 2 o'clock in the morning. But he was able to keep his sense of humor, and since then he's dealt with one notable ego, and that's Bob Uecker. And if Joe survived that, and now he's got the main job with the Pittsburgh Pirates, so now, he can act the fool around the younger guys if he wants to. He's earned it now.
Wow. Going back to my question, when you're sitting in the booth, like I sit behind, my season tickets are behind home plate.
Okay.
So, I have some sight, but when the pitcher pitches the ball, I usually can tell by the sound when the bat hits where it's going to go or if it's a foul.
Mm-hmm.
And my niece, who's fully sighted, says, "How can you tell that?" And I said, I just hear it. And she wants to know, she asked me, she said, are all people that are visually impaired or totally blind, can they tell that?
No.
No?
Everybody can't. You have something special there.
Uh-huh.
Now, you have a couple of things going for you. One is a gift you apparently have. Two, you've got better seats than we usually had as broadcasters.
Uh-huh.
Now, in some of the older ballparks, we were really in a good position, right behind the plate and up high, elevated above the ballpark. If your seats are like that, then you've got a shot. You can maybe tell, a fastball from a curve or a foul from a really good clean hit. But that's, as I say, that's
not if you can't see it all, Don.
Well, you can at least get an idea. And some hitters, Manny Ramirez, to name one, when he got a hold of one, that sounded different from when Willie Randolph got hold of one, or somebody who hit 220 for his career. Manny was something special, and Vladimir Guerrero, those two may have been the two best players we ever saw. But I was saying the best seats we ever had were at the older ballparks. The newer ones, a couple of things happen. You can either get stuck down the line, down the third base line or the first base line. That's where we were in New Britain, Connecticut. I was 4 years there. Or you can get so high that so many levels up above home plate that you really can't hear much of anything. And some of the major league parks, the announcers even say how high they are up above the field, and they joke about needing an oxygen tank to do their.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I went to the old Yankees Stadium, we sat in nosebleeder seats, and then when I went to the new Yankee Stadium, we sat in nosebleeder seats, and they said there was no difference between the two stadiums. But I got news for you. There is. But even though they say the dimensions and everything is the same, because we got almost the same location seats, and with my vision, which I have the 2 degrees of the tunnel vision, I said to my brother, it's different because I'm not seeing what I saw at the old park.
Where are you speaking from?
I'm from Massachusetts.
Okay.
I'm a Red Sox fan.
But still, you were kind enough to come to New York and go to Yankee Stadium at least a couple of times.
Yeah, first my 50th birthday, and my brother put my name up on lights and everything.
Wonderful.
and the bastards behind me dumped beer all over me.
Well, that's low down.
Yeah,
but that's
so
Yankee fans for you. I mean, that's Yankee fans.
The second time, the second time was great. No one bothered me.
Right.
I mean, both times were really, really amazing.
Mm-hmm. I went to the old stadium between 1988 and 1990. We went pro in 1991, and so we were in the minor leagues, and we couldn't go to major league ballparks. We didn't have the opportunity. But the memories I have from those 3 seasons between 1988 and 1990.
So you went and you saw Babe Ruth's head and everything?
Not quite, but...
Oh, I walked all over the field. I touched everything. I looked.
Oh, well, I didn't really have the opportunity. I was coming from work. I worked recording for the blind, and I could just about get into my seat and in time to get ready. And I had a radio and a tape recorder, and I was doing my own recreations of what was going on down on the field. And sometimes I'd get there real early, like on opening day. I'd make sure I had the day off from work. And I'd get in there at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'd hear batting practice.
Yep.
And I'd hear these.
That's a national holiday in this family. My father let me off.
Of course.
Bob, I never went to school on opening day.
and well, it should be. And
I was in the ballpark.
When you have great, like I would have for opening day, you could hear the bat and the crack of the bat in batting practice. It was just fabulous to listen to. And I'd have the foot-long hot dogs and the knishes, which you can get at Yankee Stadium, which are like nothing else anywhere in the country.
I know, they're huge.
And once we went to Fenway in 1990, it was Old Timers Day that year. My partner and I, we feared at that time in 1990 that they were going to tear down Fenway.
Oh, I know. We all protested.
We said that we wanted to go to Fenway just once, just to say we'd been there, just in case the idiots running things tore it down. And honestly, Yankee fan that I am, I'm still glad that it has not been torn down. They instead chose to put in the monster seats up above the green lawn.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's great.
Down. And I went to Wrigley once also for the same reason. I feared they would tear that down. And again, I'm glad they have not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only 2 parks that are around.
Yeah, the original, like Tiger Stadium is gone, and that was a tremendous place. The acoustics were great on a game from Tiger Stadium. You could hear everything. And it was those recordings from Tiger Stadium are some of the valued ones I have in my collection from games that were played before my time.
But those were my questions.
Okay. Any others from anybody else? We have Ed and Jay with us. I don't know if they want to ask any further questions or not.
Well, I'm hoping that if you could, Bob, if these guys want to join the Facebook group or want to read the column, you can let them know. The column itself is the website baseballasIseeit.com, but you put a dash between every word. So it's baseball-as-I-c-it.com, and it's all small letters, no capitals. And it has all the old numbers going back to August when I began the column. So
very good. And Ed has a question for you. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, Ed.
I was just going to say, what sponsors did you have at the time? I mean, you got to have some commercials. I know that. I wondered how many of them were still around, and was there any funny incidents were there any that you would care to talk about?
Well, in the minor leagues, you have to sell your product, so you have to locate your own sponsors. And so a lot of the sponsors we had were local restaurants and local stores in the different cities where we operated. Our team owners, when we would fall short of the amount of ads that should have been sold, our team owners would fill in some of the big products like Bud and some of the major ones, Bud and Pepsi, but we would have local restaurants. My first year we had a Chinese place called Hop Twos, and for me, I wrote up the slogan for them was if you want great Chinese food, hop to it. And I would eat from there as often as I could afford to, so that I could make those commercials sound authentic. That I'd say, if you want the best General Tso's chicken around, I promise you, I've had it myself and guaranteed good. And I wouldn't steer you wrong. I love this stuff, that kind of thing. And every year, 12 years, we battled to find enough sponsors to keep us on the air.
Okay. Well, our time is almost up, Don. I want to thank you for coming back to Branco Broadcast. You were on in November, too. And it was very pleasurable to hear you and what you're doing. And good luck with your book and whatever else you do in the future. And thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Bob. I hope somebody will join the Facebook group or read the column, or most of all, buy the book, Baseball as I Saw It, when it comes out, hopefully in a year or two.
Right. Very good. Thanks again, Don Wardlow.
Yeah, you bet.
And have a nice weekend, and have a nice week, everybody.
Bye now.